The time has come to do the torque ball seal on my 58 Limited. This should be a lot of fun. For those who are not familiar with my new acquisition, it's a 58 Limited, obviously a 4-door in Muppet blue is what I call it. It's supposed to be a light metallic blue, but sometime in the early 80s or 70s or something, somebody painted it this awesome color. It's got a reasonably serviceable blue interior with a really crappy headliner. Another fun one. So let me get this thing on the lift and let's take a look what we got. All right, we're up in the air. Check this out. Obviously we have a massive leak, and look at the amount it's dripping now. It's not typically dripping that much, but I've got it the suspension is unloaded, and this torque ball is also in a different spot now, so it's leaking super bad out of the seal that we need to replace. That bright metal cup is the torque ball retainer, and it has a vulcanized rubber seal on the back side of it, which appears to be basically gone on this car since it's leaking so bad. But since this is a torque tube car, we have to basically pull the rear end back about 6 inches to be able to get access to this, to be able to replace it. And to do that, let's see if I can remember this. There's 4 bolts that hold it onto the torque, or to the torque ball, and I'm gonna have to disconnect the emergency brake cable, definitely this pin hard bar, and I might be able to get away with just that by ratchet strapping it back to, backwards this way. There might be enough play. If not, I may have to lower this car down and put some support under the rear end and then disconnect the shocks so we can get a little bit more swing on the rear end. So there's a reason why I've been avoiding this. Okay, there are 4 bolts holding this flange together, which is where the torque tube and the transmission split. So when I loosen this thing up, it's probably gonna piss fluid everywhere. It's gonna piss fluid no matter what, because there's fluid that comes all the way back here. Just gonna loose it up. So there's no way you can avoid this. Oh, man. Trying to look up there without getting transmission fluid in my eyeballs. It's actually a super easy job if you didn't have to deal with pulling the torque tube and rear end back. The rest of this is gravy. Just loosening them up right now just to kind of get the fluid rolling. I'm gonna let this thing kind of leak out naturally. Maybe, I don't know. Screw it. I'll just take them out. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to get these 2 pieces apart. You never know who's been in here and gobbed sealer or glue in there with the gaskets. There's also a fluid seal in here that keeps fluid from going back into the torque tube, which usually is bad. So that'll be replaced at the same time. So we're going to replace this seal, this gasket, this guy here, and then there's another seal right here that also you can see that it's leaking through it. I should probably replace this thrust block as well, because it looks like it's nice and cracked up. Save that for another day though. There we go. Took a little persuasion with a small chisel to break that seal open, but once it's open up, it sure does go. So I'm gonna let that run for a bit and splatter all over the floor. While we're waiting for this to dump, I need to disconnect the emergency brake. So I've got to pull all this gunk off here and take that nut off, and it should just come right out. There's a little bit of there's a retainer here that I have to remove, and then the whole thing will come right out. And then the rear end should be able to come back far enough without having to remove this brake hose. So, oh, I almost forgot. Panhard bar's got to come off too, at least right here in this spot. Ah, wrong size. You'd think I know by now which size wrench I need for this nut, but I don't. 1/2 inch is what it is. This thing's turning pretty easy. Sometimes you need these channel locks to hold the cable while you loosen the nut. Be aware of what the order is for where all this stuff is, because you got to put it back in the same position. You all know that, right? If I forget, I'll just come back and look at the video. Okay, so there's that. Now I have to get this off, which all it is just a, that's usually a little C-clip. That one's a bit mangled. We'll see if we can use it, or even get it off without breaking it, because it's pretty mangled. There we go. This is a little bit of a weird guy right here, because it's got what appears just to be a nut and bolt that goes through here, but you have to remove the nut, and you'd think you'd be able to just knock the thing back, but you can't. There's two 9/16 head 3/8 inch thread bolts running through this thing that have to be removed so that bracket can come back. I ran out of my really good penetrating fluid. Let's use old WD-40. Need something a little stronger. See if I can use my little impact to get these off. Nope. That feels like they're gonna break. Get the heat. I don't like putting heat on this thing because I don't want to cook the bushing. So I'll just be as careful as I can. Ooh, yeah. There's a brake line in there I don't want to cook either. did anything. Oh yeah. Much better. This one loosens up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now I can cook with gas. Don't want to touch those bolts. Come on, get out of there. There we go. Perfect. All right, now let's see. Okay, and I'm gonna be smarter than the part. There we go. Okay, now we are free of the panhard bar. So I can go ahead and take a ratchet strap and try to, I'm gonna take 2 ratchet straps, one on each side, hook it up to the back side of the frame here and just try to pull it back. Put some back pressure on this thing, see if I can get it to pop back more from the fitting at the torque tube and transmission. While I'm thinking about it, if you notice when I took that panhard bar off, the rear end dropped like a rock. With these torque tube design systems, there's nothing, there aren't any control arms or anything like that that hold this rear end from moving back and forth. It actually is just suspended in the air by the shocks and the springs. So the only other connection point is up front at the torque tube and transmission and the panhard bar. So when you get rid of the panhard bar and you loosen up the torque tube at the transmission, it literally is gonna swing free, or as much as this stuff will allow it to. So sometimes that's why you want to disconnect the shocks if you can't get enough play. But at the same time, if you disconnect the shocks, you've got to have support under the rear end, or else your springs are going to be the only things that are holding this rear end up. And it'd be nice to have a little bit of insurance. Okay, straps have pulled it back, hopefully enough to get clearance to pull that thing out. It's out about 1.25 inches or so. So I've got 6 bolts that hold this thing on, and hopefully it'll just fall out. You still have to keep your catch can under this thing because there's a lot of fluid still left in the transmission. Can't get to those top ones without some sort of a swivel or a shorter socket. I'll try a shorter socket first. Boy, I think I need an extension to get through. I'm gonna come through the frame. Okay, where are you? There you go. Oh, that was the heater. She's cooking. There's some more stuff. All right, fast forward a little bit. I did get that last bolt out, and everything just literally just fell out. And there is an additional, there's another retainer, or I don't know what you call it, but it's an inner retainer, I guess you could say. And it also is just a piece of kind of sheet metal, and it needs to come out as well. But I am just getting doused with transmission fluid here. Yep, she's out. Okay, here's what we have. You have the inner retainer, outer retainer, and the torque ball itself. So that is the surface that seal rides on, and stuff like that little gouge right there or any of these little fine scratches are going to allow fluid to escape. So what I need to do is take this torque ball and clean it up. I basically need to polish it to pretty much a mere shine, as far up as I can get, as close to this little lip as I can. So, you know, because it's going to be riding like that in various positions, depending on what the grade or how high the car sits on the ground. And then this inner retainer has a square O-ring on it that is supposed to seal there, but I don't know how much good it does. And then also up on top here, there is this rubber square O-ring that goes in there. I don't really give much clout in those O-rings. So what I'm gonna do is I'll actually put a really thin coat of gasket maker on both surfaces here, so that all of that stacks up with a positive seal, and not just relying on those O-rings, because I don't trust them. And now we're looking at the other side where it mates up to the torque tube. You can see that it's got some buggerage on there. It's probably from me from trying to beat it apart. That also needs to be cleaned up, made sure everything's nice and flat so that everything seals well. And inside this first lip, there is a fluid seal that's stuck in the torque tube right now. I've got a new one for it, so I'll go ahead and replace that as well. Through the magic of video, this is polished. So it's not that difficult to do. I cleaned it up and used 320 to get rid of as much as I could, actually all of the imperfections except for some of the pits that I can't get out. And then I did 800 and polished it on the wheel on the bench grinder. And it's as good as it's gonna get. There's a little bit of a ring. You can kind of see what's left of the imprint from the seal. I guess it sat for a long time and it pitted that surface. So that would be the only concern as far as possible leakage there, but you know, there's no big gouges or anything out of it, so that's as good as that's going to get. So basically we can gather the new parts and start putting stuff back together. Okay, looking at our new parts, we have a new torque ball seal with the vulcanized rubber on it. I've got two gaskets here, and another gasket for the torque tube, and also a fluid seal for the back of the transmission. You can get all this at oldbuickparts.com, Cars Are Incorporated. You probably can get it on eBay a little bit faster from them. Old Buick Parts is their name. I don't know why, but their eBay store is a lot faster at shipping than if you just buy online. I think I waited almost 3 weeks for this stuff. I just bought it online. Their eBay stuff comes in, 3 or 4 days typically. Now, looking at this rear transmission seal, it's got a front and a back side. So the small spring is going to be on the fluid side. So this end is going to face toward the back. Okay, now we're to this little section here. This is the old ball seal, and yeah, we're not going to reuse it. We're using the new one, and there's a reason for that. It's kind of hard to see, but this edge inside here that actually seals against the torque ball is fairly squared off. It's got a little bit of a round edge to it, but this, you can see, has been on there for a while, and you can also see that there's a couple of gouges and whatever that might have been allowing this thing to leak. Now, this inner seal or inner retainer has this square O-ring on it, but when I stick it in here, it doesn't do anything. I'm not really even sure why it's in there, but I'm going to keep it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, real thin beads of RTV with the gaskets on both sides, and that should seal all that stuff up. You're starting with the inner seal, goes along like that toward the transmission. I put a really thin smear of RTV on, and I'm going to also use a gasket. I've done this too many times to trust those O-rings, and if you don't use them, I've even tried to use copper spray on these things and it just does not work. So I've resorted to doing this, and it seems to be so far the most effective means of keeping this thing from pissing all over the floor. What's the saying go? If a Dynaflow is not leaking, it doesn't have any fluid in it. That's pretty normal. I like to at least get around all the holes, just in case they, the threads have a tendency to wick transmission fluid. Drip, 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 slow drip. I may just have to contend with it. I really want that thing nice and dry, but I can't unless I drain the transmission. It's never going to stop. So the best thing I can do is just, wipe it up best I can. And I've got, just a little bit of time to get it up there and pushed on before that stuff wants to start seeping back out. I like having this lift, but I still can't get the car up quite high enough to stand up straight. So I'm kneeling. I'm not kneeling, but I'm bent over just a little bit. I built this thing with a 12-foot ceiling in mind, and little did I know that most of the lifts on the market require 12'6". Plus I lost a little bit of height. I raised up my concrete level just a touch so I could accommodate for a little bit of thicker concrete inside where this lift is. Let's see if I can do this before this transmission fluid comes back. Okay, I got that in. I went ahead and I brought it up there, and I took these two bolts and just kind of drove them in to get this thing to slip inside that section there, at least on the bottom, so that we don't keep hemorrhaging transmission fluid everywhere. Magically, this is in. Now this is going to just fit real loose, and it's going to want to fall off. So just kind of, I've got this stuck in here right now, so it doesn't fall out. But just do the best you can to kind of, clock this where you think it needs to be. You'll have to adjust once you get everything loose. So let's put this. We'll get this outer ring on, get everything started. I'll have to take these out and put them back in. And we'll have to leave these kind of loose and not super tight so we can move this thing around to where it needs to be able to match up with the torque tube again. Let's see if I can do this in one shot. Probably not. We'll see though. See how many hands I have here. What I really need is this locating stud. I wonder if I have any 3/8 inch threads, or I could go the opposite direction. Man, I'm smart. Look at this. Why don't we go this way? Come through the other direction. And do that. Let's do it on a different one over here. Maybe. Maybe not. Let's try to go through this one. I don't know if I need more than one or not. I just want to be able to hang that thing up here so I'm not sitting here holding it. That's as far as that one goes. The thread's, it's a shouldered bolt. Okay, well, give it a shot. Please don't fall off. Here we go. Oh, I also greased this just a little bit on the inside so this will ride smooth. Here I am with no bolts in my hand. Who's prepared? I'm not. Okay. Now, I can start all the bolts. I think I'm going to lightly torque these bottom two down so that they're not pissing fluid the entire time. But I've got to start them all first so the bolt holes are all in place. And I am certain that this thing is trashed. But I'm just going to ignore it right now because I don't want to deal with it. Forgot something. Must have fallen out when that other piece fell out. Okay. Let's do this again. I swear it's not my first day. Well, these guys doing YouTube videos showing you everything in 30 minutes. Don't show you what they screwed up. But I do. Really makes you want to do a torque ball replacement, doesn't it? Nice and easy. This, I really don't understand why Buick did this for so long when all of the other manufacturers were doing open drive shafts for years before this. It makes absolutely no sense. Okay, looking in here, I had almost forgotten, but in '58, Buick started using blind splines. There's a blind one right there, or a blank I should say, where it has to be exactly mated up with this thing within 180 degrees, because there's one here and one here 180 degrees apart from each other. And then there's a blank spline, if you can see that shadow there. It will not go in any other way, so it's got to be exactly where the splines have to meet together. And that is the most difficult part on a 58. 57 did not have these blind splines, so those were much easier to get in. All you had to do was just mate up the splines and drive it in. But this can prove kind of difficult. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to take these ratchet straps and just go 1 or 2 clicks at a time and come back up and find where we're at, and then I'll just try to guide it in as we go. I don't know if you can see that thing moving or not. one step at a time. Those splines should not have moved because the transmission didn't spin and the wheels didn't spin either. So I'm hoping that I just hit the lottery and I'm able to do this on the first shot. It's going. Not what I wanted to do. Too much. Yeah, we almost need someone over here, in addition to yourself, to get this thing going in the right direction. I think the chassis manual says to have a couple of pieces of all thread that guide this thing in, but I'm not that smart. You know what? Maybe I am. I'm gonna grab a couple long bolts, see if I can start them. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna work, at least until I get it closer. So I've got this torque tube is shaped cone-like, and if I put really long bolts in right now, I won't be able to slide them out of the holes because it'll hit the torque tube bell. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more direction forward, see if I can get something a little bit closer. I heard it hit. Yeah. Totally need another set of hands. Let's see if I can jam anything else up in here that'll work. I just need this thing to line up enough to get past that initial spot. Alright, now my seal is flopping around. Golly, that really should go inside the transmission, not inside. The torque tube. All right, I went ahead and took that seal and put it in the transmission side because I'm an idiot. And I went ahead and put this gasket in and smeared a little RTV on it. And I've got tools centering this torque ball or torque tube. Should be right where I need it to be. And I'm gonna go ahead and start ratcheting it back to where it lives. We're close, getting real close. Not there. Oh yeah, I think we're finally making progress. That hurt. Okay. Looking good so far. Looks like we're where we need to be. We might have to start drawing it in with bolts. I think so. I don't think the regular bolts are long enough to reach. Nope. I can get a couple that are just a little longer. See if this one is good. Yeah. Okay, that's started. The theory is that this bolt should draw the whole thing right in. I'm gonna run out of threads eventually with this bolt because it's shouldered. But I should be darn close on where I need to be to get these other bolts in. And it just takes a little bit of shimmy and twisting and gritting your teeth to get 2 of these bolts started. So I've got 2 in. I need to get this first one out so I can put the correct bolt in. Now that we're close enough to get all these in. What I really need to do is get all 4 of these started and then just kind of work all of them in at the same time. Hopefully, I can get them all started. I may have to drive those first 2 in a little further because these threads are caught. Going right in. Once you get it though, boy, it feels great. I need a break. Click, torqued. Okay, that is tightened up there. You wipe off your excess crap or not, doesn't matter. Reinstall your e-brake cable. And there is one more thing you gotta do. If you noticed, I only tightened these 2 bolts here. I still have to tighten the rest of the 4 up top, but I can't do that until this thing, the rear end is loaded. So I will have to put it on the ground and then put a jack, or get it close to the ground, put a jack under the pumpkin, jack it up till the butt end of the car starts coming up, and then come back here and tighten those bolts up there. Nope. Not gonna work. Don't do it. Spin it. Now I can. I love rattling the car around like this on her left. It's not scary at all. Okay. I'm not gonna go crazy tightening this thing until I get these other bolt holes lined up. I'm gonna snug it up enough to or maybe not. I'm sure you would take more time than I am right now if you were doing a nice clean build and everything, but this car is not at that point. It may never get to that point. I just want to get it in good driving condition, which means I still need to go through the brakes and carburetor. And whatever else I find out that's wrong with the car. Looks like it's got newish brake lines on it, so that's good. The car runs and drives, it's just got issues. right, let's get it on the ground so I can load this rear end up and tighten those front bolts. It's just high enough to where I can get a jack under that rear end and load up the suspension. I went ahead and tightened those bolts without showing you because my battery is running low, and if you needed to see it, good luck. So anyway, it's not the worst job in the world, but it sucks pretty bad, and you gotta be ready for surprises and screw ups and whatnot. So just make sure you have all your parts beforehand and you should be fine. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Tell everybody you know. I'll see you next time.